Hey, what's going on, guys? Fizz here with another build diary. This is for Physics Drain. Let me actually grab a map here because I've only been running T1s and T2s trying to farm cluster jewels. We'll do maybe, do I have any like decent ones that I want to run that are higher? We'll do Underground River. I haven't done too many like high tier maps on this character. So this is a Essence Drain Contagion champion. I know that sounds pretty weird, but there's some cool stuff going on with it, and I haven't really decided yet how I ultimately like want to play the character. I'll get more into that later, but I picked up like a 20 qual Contagion or something the other day, and I was like, you guys reckon that we could like make ED Contagion work in the current year? I ended up throwing together a POB that looked pretty good. I didn't really want to play a Trickster. Not that Trickster is necessarily bad, I'm just, I find builds that hug like super hard in the right side of the tree and struggle to get armor, they tend to feel really awkward anytime you have to stand still. And all the single target on a build like this is coming from Blight, basically. Like anytime you're doing bossing or you need a lot of damage, like an Essence monster, all your damage is coming, not all of it, but a large majority of it is coming from Blight. So I wanted something that could like stand still and not really care too much. So I figured champion would be good for that, as a lot of like non-conditional defense, you know what I mean? Like you just always get fortify and stuff like that. Like it's one of the pitfalls I think of melee builds in general is having more access nowadays to fortify is very cool via the tree and whatnot. However, champion is still kind of king when it comes to fortify, because you think about a lot of like boss mechanics and stuff, anytime you get downtime you drop fortify because there's nothing to hit, right? It's just a flaw in the design of fortify, I guess, because it's supposed to be like melee's like main form of defense, and it doesn't really do that very well anytime you really need it in a lot of situations. Like think like Exarch balls, you just don't have fortify for Exarch balls, stuff like that. The champion is always really good for stuff like that because you just the defense is completely non-conditional, you will always have it, so that's nice. Let's see if we kill the boss here. The damage for now, I would say, is it's all right. I've still not set up my links completely, so I'm not using a wither setup yet. So this is all completely without wither, waiting on my RF. There we go. So a big portion of my damage is coming from Righteous Fire, and that's kind of what I was talking about when I said I wasn't set on it one way or another. And yeah, we are on a 5 links. We're on a 4 link Blight and a 5 link ED. Worth mentioning. So that was a T13 map, no tanky mods though. So I guess we'll start here with kind of like why champion and why I thought it would be good. And to my understanding, chat told me that this isn't really a new idea or new concept. Carve, his full name, Carvarusco, it's too hard for me to say, I'm sorry, I'm ignorant. Apparently he played this in a few different variants a few leagues back, so this isn't like a super new idea or anything, but I do think it's pretty decent even in modern PoE for a few reasons. But first, I'm going to do, a lot of people are going to say, why champion, you have no damage? Well, that isn't necessarily true. We do get a bunch of R effect from inspirational, which is really good. Obviously it's not a ton of damage, but it's some damage. And then the other thing is first to strike, last to fall. That kind of enables a interesting playstyle where if we can consistently proc adrenaline and have 100% uptime on adrenaline, we are getting 100% increased damage, which is that is a very like noticeable damage boost. 25% increased cast speed, which is very good for things like Blight and just mobility during a fight, right? Move speed and 10% additional Fizz DR. So if we're running a build that has 3 endurance charges and permanent adrenaline, that is effectively 22% Fizz DR that you're getting before armor or anything else is factored in, which is pretty good. So how are we like really proccing adrenaline? Well, while mapping, I've been using a death rush. Now I've tried this without a death rush and with a death rush. You can do either one. For now, I prefer Death Rush simply because, like I said, I'm farming like low tier maps, just trying to do Delirium to get cluster jewels for the build. And in like lower tier maps, you don't have that T14 plus influence mob pack spawn like all over the place. So the density is a lot lower. And anyone who's ever played Essence Drain Contagion will tell you, you'll know that it scales very hard with density. That is like the main scaler of its clear speed in a way. So in these like lower tier maps where there's a lot of downtime between packs, it didn't feel as good. So I've been using Death Rush, but it's not mandatory at all. The cool thing about Death Rush is you can't gain adrenaline while you have adrenaline, but with a Death Rush, it only lasts 3 seconds on a max roll, which is what I have. Which means every 3 seconds, I get a heal for 25% of my life, and I cleanse all ailments. So that's pretty cool. You are effectively ailment immune while mapping with the ring. That being said, you can very easily use Vaal Righteous Fire to proc adrenaline, which has been the plan for single target because it sacrifices 60% of your ES and life. Obviously, we don't care about the ES because we are running a diadem setup. And for the life, losing 60% of it would put you on low life, since low life threshold is 50% of your life, which means as soon as you use it, you proc low life, heal for 25%. And then get your adrenaline and the 19% more damage boost from Vaal RF. And the cool part about this is you can have effectively 100% uptime on this. While mapping, your Vaal RF will be up long before your adrenaline drops. And while bossing, as long as you keep up on damage, and there's not like an invuln phase or something like that, you'll be able to keep up adrenaline and decent uptime on Vaal RF. It is a 10-second soul gain prevention. Excuse me. 10-second soul gain prevention with only 40 souls. Relatively standard and a pretty low count. So that gives you basically 10 seconds after the cooldown stops to get, you know, your souls back. Which is plenty of time before your adrenaline falls off. That being said, there are some things that I am uncertain about on how I want to do it. So to give you guys an idea of what I mean, I'll just activate normal RF. You'll see it will go down to low life. It'll heal me back up instantly, and it procs my adrenaline. So now I have all the move speed, the Phys DR, the cast speed, everything. Now, using normal RF gives you a 39% more damage multiplier versus a 19% from only Vaal RF. That's obviously really good. So something that I've been playing around with in PoB is once I've got my level 21 Essence Drain, I did just corrupt a set of 6 on my weapon swap, and none of them hit 21, so I'm still using a level 20 ED. Not quality. The quality is from the Vaal. Once I get level 21 gyms and stuff, I want to start leveling a Purity of Fire, and I think it's worth, because the auras that I'm running in the build are Defiance Banner, because you get a banner for free in the build, right? Defiance Banner, Vitality, Malevolence, Determination, and Summon Skitterbots. Those are the auras that I'm running in the build. I'm thinking of dropping Skitterbots for Purity of Fire and just trying to sustain a normal RF setup for that massive damage increase. My end game PoB with the Cluster Jewel setup was a little bit shy of 5 million DPS with Wither Totems. However, like I said, I'm currently not running Wither Totems, partially due to me using Blood Rage, because right now I need to sustain Frenzies. I need 1 Unset Ring for the setup, and then I'm using a Death Rush to map faster. And yeah, there's something else here. Oh, yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. One of these things somewhere goes. So this would be gone, and then this could be wherever. Basically, I need a 3-link for my Wither Totem setup, and I don't remember. I would have to check the PoB. You can see the gyms over here. But I don't remember what the specifics were. I think one thing too is that I was planning on using my 6 socket, only playing around a 5-link and using my 6 socket for the Defiance Banner, and then throwing RF in an Unset Ring. Yeah, the links aren't super important right now, but basically, no wither setup right now. And you should only really need wither for probably like mostly bosses once everything's online. There's a lot of damage still left on the table for the build. A lot of it comes from gym levels. I'm just about to flip a lot of my gyms. You can see that most of them are now hitting 20 and they're all getting ready to get flipped. So I try to, for the most part, I try to flip all my gyms at the same time. So I'm not like constantly having to keep track of different gyms being flipped at different times. So most of the time I'll just wait until at least most of them are level 20 before I start flipping them. And I'm getting that point on this character now. But I need to craft, I think it is Delirium gloves, the one that gives 30% more damage to damage over time if used on the glove slot. I've thrown about 15 of them on this pair of gloves so far, but it hasn't hit yet. So unfortunate, but it is, you know, it's whatever. As soon as I get that, it'll be another link on my blight, which is a big deal. However, back to the original point, dropping skitter bots and using Purity of Fire, using a normal Righteous Fire with a level 20 Vitality and just a level 20 Purity of Fire, you can actually roll your implicits for +1 max fire res and get a level 21 Purity of Fire. And maybe I forgot how this works, but you only need a little bit of aura effect to get that base like 4% or 5%. I don't remember if it's 4 or 5% at level 20, but to get that up 1% extra, you only need a little bit of aura effect and stuff if it's level 21. And obviously playing a champion, we get a ton of extra aura effect, as well as, you know, we take 2 aura nodes, 2 aura clusters. So I should be able to get that +1 pretty easily. So the degen is only about 100 to 200 life per second, depending on your level. You know, if you're like 94 to 96 or 97. And that's without any life regen rolled on gear. That's with no life regen rolled on gear at all. So that's very little degen. Now you may be thinking, well, you're still degenning, so why are you even talking about this? Well, the interesting part is that Essence Drain actually heals you for 0.5% of the damage it deals. Now, I had to do a little bit of looking into how this actually works. Apparently, you can't just take the actual dot damage of your Essence Drain and then multiply it by 0.5%. You have to do the tooltip damage, or go, if you're doing it through POB, go into the calc tab and change it to buffed. Usually it'll say in combat or effective DPS. In the calculations tab, you need to go up and change it to buffed damage, and then take that dot damage, and that is what you're getting healed by. Now, what is that for us, right? Well, I think on a 6-link in an endgame setup, it is healing us for like 1700 life or something when it's on one target. So while you're mapping, it'll heal you for every target it's on, right? Which is like infinite healing. But for single target, you only have it up on the boss. So basically, Purity of Fire and Vitality by itself will almost break you even. And then anytime you have Essence Drain on the boss, which should be anytime they're not literally intangible, you'll still be healing at a surplus of like 12, 13, 1400 life a second, which is a lot of life per second. Now there is a choice you can make here of letting, not trying to use perma adrenaline for this as well. So you can have RF up on the, for the boss, and then just use the adrenaline low life first to strike last to fall node as a safety net. Like say, you know, the boss goes invulnerable, like Shaper or bullet health starts or whatever. And then he's not targetable. You can just let your health burn down to half because your Essence Drain isn't ticking anymore. And then you'll pop back up and it'll turn your RF off. But what you can do is just run a Dowsing Flask instead while you're bossing, because a Dowsing Flask will turn off RF. And then you can have Vaal RF active with Adrenaline. So you can have Adrenaline, Vaal RF, and RF active, as long as you are comfortable not having the safety net of the heal and just manually turning your RF off when you need to. Because if you have the Adrenaline up, you're not going to get the heal, right? You're not going to get the proc that removes the RF, and you're not going to get the heal. So you would have to do it manually. There are plenty of situations where it would line up for you. Like Shaper goes invuln, he TPs away, and there's only 5 seconds left on your, or 6, 7, whatever seconds left on your Adrenaline. You can let it tick down, and then it'll heal you up anyway. No, it's no big deal. But there will be, you know, that's like a case-by-case basis. Sometimes you will have to turn it off manually, and sometimes it'll just work out where you don't. But if you wanted to min-max it, I think that's probably the way to go, because that's a lot of extra more damage, and that's not something like other builds that run ED that you could play ED Contagion on, like Occultist or Trickster. That's not something they could really get away with. So I think like all of this combined makes a really good argument for playing Champion, because on top of that, Champion gets to dual wield wands, and wands are very, very strong. You don't need to use the shield because you have permanent fortify, which is, you know, like it's a stronger defensive layer than what anything else would have with a shield, right? So you get to go full on damage, you get to go full aggression, and both of my wands here are basically identical. You may see multi-mod on here and like panic and think, oh god, but these are actually brain dead easy to make, okay? They take 2 seconds. It's what I had in my POB. It took me 2 seconds to make these. All you do is do the vendor recipe for +1 to chaos spell gems. What that is a normal wand, and then the sum of 40% quality on gems with the chaos tag. So if this wither had like 20% and this void manipulation support had 20%, you'd vendor both of them. It equals 40% quality total. With a normal wand, it'll give you back a +1 to chaos. That is a vendor recipe that they added a few leagues ago. Very good. So I do that, and then I multi-mod chaos dot and increase chaos damage with chaos skill duration. That's it. That's both of them. Now there are small things you could add to these to make them slightly better. There is cast speed. There is chaos damage, even though the roll on chaos damage is quite low. The increased chaos damage and increased spell damage, those are mutually exclusive mods, so you can't add those. However, you'll see here that on the suffix, yeah, it's only 16% chaos damage that you can get from the bench. You can't get a lot more out of this. You can get a little bit, but it's not a ton. These are the best mods in my opinion. To run on it, and it's very easy to craft. Both of them are super simple. It's just you get the divines for the multi-mod, and then it's, you know, it's free. The mods themselves are only a few chaos. Very easy to craft your endgame weapons for this build. Anyway, with all that preamble out of the way, that is why I chose Champion. Now the Ascendancies overall, I actually went for First to Strike, Last to Fall first. You don't need to do this, but I wanted to level with Vaal RF and see how it felt on act bosses, because I hadn't really tested this before. So what I did was I just walked into an act boss like Calm or something, or Malachi, whatever. Pop Vaal RF, it would proc my adrenaline, heal me up, and then I'd, you know, throw on Essence Drain and hold down Blight, and they die really fast, and it seemed to work well while leveling. So that's what I did, and then after First to Strike, Last to Fall, I did Cruel Lab and Merc Lab for Fortify. Obviously, Unstoppable Hero doesn't do anything for us. Stun immunity and a bunch of armor and evasion is very cool, but we only get it when we're fortified, and obviously we are not fortified until we do Merc Lab. So I actually did not even do my Cruel Lab until Blood Aqueduct, when I was ready to also do Merc Lab along with it. Finally, in Uber Lab, that's when I go for Inspirational, so I can start using my banner and get a bunch of aura effect. It gives you a bunch of EHP, a bunch of defense, and a little bit of damage. So that's the Ascendancy and the Ascendancy Order. A lot of the pathing here is pretty simple. I'm getting Onslaught from Graceful Assault. This node feels so good, especially on Champion. These nodes leading up to it are both 15% effective Onslaught, and the final one is 30, which is 60% total effective Onslaught. You zoom with this build. Perma Adrenaline, a bunch of Onslaught effect, like you are running fast. It feels very good. You just run really quick. And then the nodes leading up to it also is 10% evasion and armor, 10% evasion and armor. The final node is 30% increased armor and evasion during Onslaught, which you'll have Onslaught permanently while mapping. I do plan on taking the Mastery here as well. That is 8% increased evasion per Frenzy and 8% increased armor per Endurance. It's just right now I only have 1 Endurance charge, so I haven't felt pressed to take it. From there, Thick Skin, it's just a life node. It is, you know, and then the life masteries, I take 10% increased max life, plus 50 life, and Vitality has mana reservation efficiency. Going up, Intuition is a really, really good node. It's just life, evasion, and spell sup. Now, it is worth noting, while leveling, I did grab Herbalism, but I actually pathed through the bottom here to rush Charisma and go for Wasting, because I wanted to get to damage nodes as fast as possible. Because getting Onslaught is really cool while leveling, but you'll notice there's not really any damage nodes through this part of the tree. So I went through this route. to be able to run auras while leveling. So I could fit in a damage aura and then get a bunch of chaos dot multi to help with damage, and then, you know, entropy and cast speed. So there's a lot of damage right here on the tree and moving up here. But there's basically none down here. So I just rushed this. And this costs 1 passive point more to path this way. And the reason we do it is only for Inveterate. So until you're ready to stay in spec to Inveterate and go full spell suppression, you can basically just path through here and it saves 1 passive point. Aside from that, like I said, Inveterate, Revenge of the Hunted, Charisma. My reservation masteries are aura effect and increased damage for each aura we have on us. Now we have 5, so that's, you know, that's pretty good. Mileage for that node, that's 16 times 2 is 32 plus 8. So we're getting 40% increased damage for 1 passive point, which is pretty good. And then wasting, you know, chaos dot node is a bunch of chaos dot multi, which is really good. For the masteries right now, I have 1 chaos dot multi per 4% chaos res. And then I have the other mastery for chaos res. Right now, my chaos res isn't capped. My chaos res is a little rough right now, but some of my pieces are pretty bad. Like, this chess piece is really, really bad. I'm only using it while I wait to roll the chess piece I actually plan on using. So I haven't wanted to really invest a lot in any of it. A lot of my gear is still pretty iffy. Some of it's good, but some of it's pretty bad. So from there, coordination, entropy, Fangs of the Viper, more move speed, chaos damage, pretty good. Into resourcefulness, again, this is life, ES, and spell sup. And then Blood Drinker. This is where we're getting our last mastery, and then, you know, just a bunch of life. Pathing up through trickery into growth and decay. Growth and decay is obviously really good. It gives you a bunch of life regen and dot multi. And again, if we plan on using RF at some point for bossing, then just having that extra regen is really good. The build has tons and tons of life regen. It feels very nice. The damage over time mastery for skill effect duration. So you'll notice on this tree, we don't actually path for a skill duration node. So that's why on both of my wands, I go for skill effect duration. We're using Malevolence for skill effect duration, and then we're getting the dot mastery for skill effect duration. So we still do get a large amount of skill effect duration on the tree, without going for an actual duration wheel, just because there was no way for me to like really fit it in. It didn't feel worth it. So that's why. We still do get a very healthy amount though. I think Essence Drain lasts for 6+ seconds endgame. And our blight, we can very, very easily sustain a max stacked blight. So a lot of my effort went into just extending it to create as much of a buffer window as possible to maintain high stacks when I have to interrupt casting to cast another spell or to move a little bit, and then having a lot of cast speed to be able to get to 20 as fast as possible. Now I do plan on taking Lethe Shade as well. I love any build that can run this node. It is so good in hardcore. I just haven't felt the need to take it yet because nothing really does a lot of damage to me. I haven't felt threatened by anything. It's really good for bossing and stuff like that, but right now I'm taking Ralakesh for to not have to worry about bleeds, and aside from that, I have so much like life regen that dots and stuff don't really bother me too much. So probably once I start bossing and stuff, I'll take this, but for now I don't feel the need to take it. We take Instinct as well. This is our second spell suppression cluster that we take. That combined with these smaller just 1 points that we take gets us a very large amount of spell suppression from the tree by itself. I'm pretty sure that you can almost cap spell suppression without any suppression on your gear at all. You'll notice that I'm at 87% right now, though 10% of that is from Revenge of the Hunted. And I have less effect on my flask, but you'll notice when the flask is popped, it's at 94%. If it didn't have 25% reduced effect, it would be even more. So what you can do early on is you can just spend 2 extra passive points here to get an additional 13% chance to suppress, and you will be spell suppress capped from the tree alone. You can also anoint Entrench, which is what I had on my other amulet that I just replaced. I forgot to do this. Which puts me at 99% spell suppression, funnily enough, from the tree alone. I have no spell suppression on any of my gear. It's only from the tree. So that's very, very convenient for the build for obvious reasons. So moving on from there, pathing through Written in Blood. The strength is really good, by the way. Strength is something you're going to struggle with a little bit on this build. Basically what I plan on doing, I ended up getting strength on both my new diadem. It rolled strength in, which is cool. And then I got strength on my gloves, which is cool, though I am going to replace this. ultimately, I think the best place to get your strength is from your belt slot, just crafting it with anger essences to guarantee 46 to 50 strength on it. It doesn't need to be a super high tier essence either. Just hit it with strengths until you get life, some resist, and then an open suffix for the regen mod. Pathing through atrophy is, again, more skill effect duration and a bunch of chaos damage. It's where we're getting our second chaos mastery. Influence is our second aura mastery cluster. And then mysticism. So we get to take this because we're dual wielding. Basically, cast speed, cooldown recovery of movement skills, cast speed, cooldown recovery of movement skills, and then cast speed again and some spell damage. So you'll notice that my flame dash regens quite fast. It is only level 17. I did flip it. But the regen on it is quite fast. And a lot of that is due to getting a bunch of extra cooldown recovery rate on mysticism. However, this is not something we'll be taking forever. You'll notice that I path pretty far to the left out here. We get more life through Cruel Prep. Grabbed a jewel socket here because I got a really, really nice jewel. It's life, chaos dot multi, and dot multi. Very, very nice Viridian jewel there. And then pathing through Heart of Darkness. Now, I also plan on taking Corruption as well. However, I'm not running my Wither totems yet, so I don't need this because I have no way to apply Wither right now. Now, technically, I could put in Withering Step, but my problem right now is sockets. Though, if I get my Frenzies online automated before I get my Wither totems online, then what I will probably do is fit in Withering Step, so I at least have some Wither. It helps a lot. But that's pretty much that for the most part. With the cluster jewel setup, I will basically be dropping everything here you see on the left of the tree, including mysticism. So it'll be, my tree will be from here down. We go through these projectile nodes here in order to get our cluster jewel set up. It's 1 large, 2 mediums. And it's just the normal stuff you would expect. Chaos damage, duration, the 1 Vaal invigoration or whatever it is. I could be wrong, but it's the one that gives you a little bit of life, some life regen, and dot damage. Just like the typical stuff that you would see. I've had pretty bad luck with cluster jewels so far. I've dropped around like 80 cluster jewels the last day and a half of farming, and I haven't gotten any that are usable. But that being said, that is the end goal, and the build looks to have pretty good damage end game. The only awkward part is it's not like a poison build or anything. We're so close to Whispers of Doom, but there's nothing we can really take. The only curse that would, like offensively, the only curse that makes sense is Punishment. It's the only thing that really gives us damage. However, we can't really fit Punishment in socket-wise, so basically what it would come down to is like automating Despair in some way, like a Despair on hit ring, and then manually casting Punishment or whatever, and that was like such a damage loss that it ended up breaking even for running a double curse. It's too awkward to fit in, and yeah, chaos. That's just one of Chaos Dot's problems, I guess. There's nothing really. Whispers of Doom would be really cool if we had any other curse to use. I mean, if you wanted to run this and then use like an Enfeeble or something, you could. I don't really think it's necessary though. So that is the passive tree. I'll go ahead and go through the gym links in full real quick. So in the Diadem, we want to have Vitality, Malevolence, Determination, and Summon Skitterbots. Like I said, I may be replacing Summon Skitterbots with Purity of Fire once I get the other stuff online and testing that and seeing how comfortable it feels, because it's a massive damage boost. In my wands, I'm running Despair, Flame Dash, Righteous Fire, Contagion, Intensify, and Increased AoE. Now, I don't feel like I need... We have Frenzy charges, and then we have Adrenaline and all these other sources of so much cast speed that you don't feel like you need the faster cast speed for Contagion. And Arcane Surge would be something that would be really good to fit into the build because it's like just flat more spell damage multi. However, it's pretty impossible to fit it into the build while running a Diadem because using ES does not count as using mana. There is a cluster jewel notable you can get that gives you a chance to proc Arcane Surge when you cast a spell or whatever, but there were no other good notables, so I'd be wasting my large cluster jewel for something that is just less damage than going for the damage over time large cluster jewel. Anyway, with that said, in my links for Essence Drain right now, I'm using ED, Controlled Destruction, Void Manipulation, Efficacy, and Swift Affliction. If you have a 6 link, Optimally, you'd want to use Empower. If you don't have an Empower, then you'd use Life Tap. They're both like a 14% or so damage increase for the build. It is minimal, but it is what it is. If you have a level 4 Empower, it's a decent damage boost. However, I think for an endgame setup, what I was seeing is for bossing, you'll probably want to swap your links around. You'll want to put your Blight in your chest piece and put your Essence Drain in your dot gloves. That tends to yield a lot more damage. In my gloves, I have Blight, Infused Channeling, Controlled Destruction, and Efficacy. Now, you can use Void Manipulation instead of Efficacy, but for the time being, since I don't have as much cast speed as I would otherwise want, I'm using Efficacy to help increase the skill effect duration to maintain stages longer. Now, in endgame, how this works out, I'm not sure. If I don't use Efficacy, according to POB, I can still very comfortably maintain 20 stacks of Blight on a target. So I don't really gain anything according to the numbers by getting more skill effect duration, but it does add a lot to the buffer window of if I have to move or, you know, stuff like that. If there's a little bit of downtime, having those stacks stay up instead of falling off rapidly, and that's potentially losing more damage than I would gain by using a higher damage support. I don't know. That's something I'll have to feel out and decide which one I like. It is very important to note that you do want Blight in your gloves. And when you swap, you want Essence Drain going in your gloves for bossing and whatnot, because you can get +1 to socketed gems on your glove slot. So right now, my Blight is level 24. It's getting 2 levels from my wands, 1 level from my amulet, and 1 level from the gloves. Now, once we craft Delirium gloves, basically all I'm looking for in my Delirium gloves is I want life and some resists. And then if I have to multi-mod the gloves to finish them or fix them, then I'm completely okay with that. But basically I want an open prefix on them so I can put on +1 to socketed gems. That's very important. Now the boots, just Molten Shell with cast when damage taken. I'm using a typical 110 setup, and Defiance Banner with Blood Rage. So yeah, worth noting that endgame, we do need to run at least 1 unset ring, and we need to fit in our Wither totems for single target damage. Without running them, it's like halving your damage. It is really, really annoying. I will say that they got rid of, what is the name of that jewel? The jewel that gave, Spreading Rot, the one that gave you Wither on Blight. I don't know why they deleted that from the game and offered no compensation, because, if it was still in the game, just by using Withering Step and Blight, we would be able to basically maintain max, if not very high, Wither stacks all the time without having to mess with spell totems. But for some reason, they killed that for no reason and then didn't give us anything back. Because apparently, I don't know, maybe Chaos Dot was too strong before. But yeah, that is pretty bad for this build, because it's already pretty tight on sockets, and that just being able to, you know, mess with Withering Step and just relying on Blight would feel infinitely better than having to babysit totems. Now, babysitting these totems isn't as bad because you can throw them up pretty far away. They don't buff you in any way, they just debuff the opponent. So it's not like as bad as melee totems are, but again, I'm just in general in PoE, I'm getting very sick of not totem builds having to babysit totems to get the most out of my build. And it's not like little tweaks to min-max it, it's like it like over doubles the damage of my build, so it's like actually griefing to not do it, you know what I mean? It's oppressive. But yeah, that's all the links. As the gear itself goes, I actually got a good lab enchant on this. Summon Skitterbots have 90% increased AoE, so I just have, you know, stuff further away will be chilled and shocked, which is cool. But I'm using a diadem. My chest piece, like I said before, it really sucks. It's just life and 2 resist rolls. It's garbage trying to benchcraft a life one too. The wands I went over at the beginning of the video, but again, you vendor recipe on +1 chaos onto a normal wand, a wand, not magic, not rare, a normal wand, and then just multi-mod chaos dot multi and chaos damage with effect duration. That is for both wands. And then you're good to go on your endgame weapons. For your amulet, this is actually pretty important. So basically this amulet isn't anything crazy. It's just T1 life, 1 resist roll, +1 chaos, and an open suffix. I would actually probably multi-mod this if the global crit strike chance wasn't on there, and then just fill it with a bunch of resist or something. Or plus resist and +1 endurance is probably what I would do. So something to note, if you guys don't know this, okay, this is pretty important. +1 to the level of chaos skill gems is incredibly easy to craft through harvest. So if you do chaos reforges on an amulet, hold on, let me see if I have something. Okay, this is eye level 75. We'll see if we can hit it real quick. So in general, crafting a lot of your main pieces of gear using chaos reforges on like gloves or body or helmet or boots is generally still a very high like mileage craft to throw on gear, because it can't roll anything except chaos res. So even though the weightings on harvest have been destroyed by GG and massively nerfed, if there's only one thing with the chaos tag, you're basically guaranteeing it. It is largely the same with amulets. You can roll like, it's like chaos res and +1 to gems. So it doesn't take a lot to get, okay, I didn't hit it and I only had a few rerolls, but it doesn't take a lot of time or effort at all to get +1. If you sit down with 20 to 30 rerolls, you'll hit +1 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So you just wait until you get relatively decent mods. This only took me a few rerolls, like less than 5 to hit. It's actually really, really easy to make a +1 chaos gem, specifically chaos amulet. So don't be too intimidated by that if you haven't crafted one before. And then the belt is pretty good. It's got some armor on it, T1 life, 2 decent resistances, and I'm mostly using it because it had an open suffix for ES regen. So here's the interesting part about the build. I was not sure if I would need it or not. So if you look at the ES, obviously I can sustain no problem without the craft. However, when you pop Vaal RF, it will shoot down obviously 60% of your ES. And then that puts you at a slightly awkward spot where you can't cast ED and Despair. And then you end up having to wait a little bit, which obviously Vaal RF itself only lasts for like a little bit less than 7 seconds. So you're wasting a lot of valuable time just waiting for the ES to regen up just enough to cast. So it ended up feeling a little bit clunky, so I threw it on anyway. So that way, when you pop Vaal RF, you'll just like, you know, I only have 450 ES. It'll, by the time my cast even finishes, it'll already be like almost topped off again. So it's just to make it feel comfortable. It's not mandatory. And if you aren't using Vaal RF at all, you don't need it whatsoever. With that said, I think that's all the gear. Oh, the boots are just life, resist, and then I bench crafted on move speed and chill immune. Normally this is where you'd put in onslaught on kill, but since I'm already getting onslaught on kill through graceful assault, I just bench crafted on chill immune. And you could say, well, then save yourself some passive points. You could like drop the life here and just path through the top and save a ton of passive points, not coming down here for these, but it's like, this gives you a ton of armor and evasion, and the mastery is also very, very good. So even ignoring the onslaught, you still get a lot of EHP from this node. It's also worth noting that while you could path through the top side here, we do need at least 3 life masteries, and there's not really any life anywhere else up here. The only thing is melding, and that's not really a ton of life by itself, and it also costs a bunch of points to get to anyway. So you're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place where this is really the best node for you to get. You kind of want to go out of your way anyway, because there's nowhere else for you to get life easily, especially once you've pulled out of the other nodes and your tree is from here down for the cluster jewel setup. So yeah, in the flasks, nothing fancy as per usual. Instant life flask with bleed removal, jade with freeze immune, which I actually don't even need this right now. I already got my freeze immunity. It should be increased evasion. Granite with increased armor, quicksilver with shock, and quartz with reduced effective curses. And that's pretty much everything. As far as playstyle goes for the build and how it is button wise, right now I need to use Blood Rage. So I guess I should cover the Frenzy tag. Basically, what I plan on doing is getting Frenzy Charge generation every 15, 14, 13 seconds. It doesn't matter what tier I get, but Frenzy Charge generation from Exarch Embers on the chest piece. And then I For the pre-cluster setup, I actually have Disciple of the Forbidden. This may seem Pepega because we don't really care about power charges. However, this is five passive points for a 12% more damage multi and 12% attack and cast speed. It is actually really good on paper if you break down into the damage you gain based on point efficiency. Now, once we swap to the cluster jewel setup, obviously we can't go all the way out here. Instead, we'll get it from overcharged instead. And you may be wondering, well, why don't you grab overcharged now? Simply because we don't actually need anything from overcharged. We'll have frenzy charge generation by ourselves. We'll have endurance charge crafts on our rings. And then we don't care about power charges at all. So it doesn't really do anything. The reason that I don't path it right now is even if I were to grab this jewel socket instead of this one, it costs one more passive point for effectively no difference, right? Because this is 5 passive points total, including the mastery. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 passive points total, including the mastery. So it's 1 extra passive point for no real difference. The only reason we run it later on is because we won't be anywhere remotely here on the tree once we start using cluster jewels. Though it is absolutely worth it to run. The frenzy charges, yeah, like chaos spells, chaos dot spells really struggle with like sources of more damage, especially since your 6 link in all these builds generally sucks. So getting sources of more multi is really nice. And then the 12% more cast speed is going to help you with, getting your blight to max stacks as fast as possible. And just uptime is really important, right? And then Disciple of the Forbidden, it will give us +1 to minimum power charges. So we get 8% increased damage. So it's not literally nothing. It is something. But yeah, that's the main reason we're taking it, is Sustained Frenzies. So that's what I'm talking about on when I can replace Blood Rage. But for the time being, that's how we sustain it. Now, for general mapping, it's really easy. If you never played Essence Drain Contagion before, you'll pop Contagion, throw out an Essence Drain. It will chain through and kill everything. You fight a tanky monster, you'll throw down Despair and then hold down Blight. That's really all it is. It's very, very simple to play. You need damage. If you're not using a Death Rush to proc Adrenaline while mapping, basically, anytime Adrenaline falls off, you will use your Vaal RF. It will instantly proc your Adrenaline, heal you back up like this, and then you have 20 seconds of Adrenaline, of super fast casting speed, and a bunch of move speed and extra damage and fizz damage reduction. And then your RF will charge back up as you go through the map, and then just keep an eye on your Adrenaline, because if you pop Vaal RF before your Adrenaline falls off, you won't get the heal and you'll just chunk the shit out of yourself. So do keep an eye on that. But yeah, that's everything for the build. The character is currently level 89. Like I said, I've mostly been just sitting in low maps trying to get cluster jewels. But the character is definitely, he's pretty well. I think, like, if I was running a Wither Totem setup, he'd be able to handle T13 maps at this point, no problem, even on a 5-link. It is pretty comfortable. Yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's been fun to play ED Contagion again since it's been dead for a really long time. And I didn't play it for a long time, even when it was meta before it got nerfed, because hipster. But yeah, it's been fun to play it again. I definitely recommend it if you've been pining for the play style again. You miss the skill. It's been fun, and I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's been just enjoyable all around. It's an interesting way to play it, and being super tanky is always super fun. So that's all I've really got for you guys in this build diary. I'm currently juggling this character, and I just started leveling a variant of Rage Vortex Bladestorm Berserker, simply because I accidentally crafted a 150 PDPS Despot Axe, and I can't use that for the Slam build that I want to do, because I don't want to use a Despot Axe in the Slam build that I want to do, because Despot Axes are terrible for Slams. So I was like, I want to use it for something, I guess, why not? And I don't really want to use it on my Bone Shatter character. So I'm leveling that. So if that sounds interesting to you, keep an eye out for that. It'll be this character and that Rage Vortex Bladestorm character that I'm leveling up. And yeah, that's what I've got going on right now. So if you like the video, please do leave me a thumbs up. Help me with the algorithm. If you didn't like it, feel free to leave me a thumbs down and leave me some constructive criticism below. Aside from that, if you want to support me, you can subscribe to the channel to be notified when I upload videos. You can come check me out on Twitch. I'll be live as soon as this video goes up. Feel free to join my Discord to talk to members of my community and also get 24/7 build help in there. I do all that stuff for free. And also follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined. Anyway, that is the end of this video build diary. I appreciate you guys. Happy New Year's, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.